We live on Facebook. Let me connect here. We're live on Instagram, we're live on YouTube and Facebook. It's me. Hope okay with everybody. Crystal's on right now. The building drop a few things on a few things, but we are here. We do it well. So questions that means you to give you these. We got I've done those in thing now people want is my support form, a little bit long form with a lot of curious what you on right now. Connection isn't great on Facebook. Seems to be good on two and when summer. Jeremy, I've had the 8 failing, and I get to be cold. I'd be super better than not. Home gym. Boom. Let's see if that works better. And boom. All right, so that should help with the video camera and a little bit with the audio. So pros and cons of a home gym. So I love having a home gym. I didn't think I would like having a home gym. I originally hated home gyms because my approach or my outlook on home gyms was like thrown together garage gyms, and it just was like crappy equipment. And then COVID happened and everybody had to work out from home, so they were getting all fancy with their home gyms. We kind of built our own home gym here, which has got some pretty legit equipment. So I love working out outside of the corporate gym scene currently. I would be hard pressed to go back into a corporate gym. We'll do it when we're traveling, but I don't like, trying to compete with people for jumping on a bench. I don't like having to worry with, working in with people on a set. Like, I like having my own setup. Do you sell caps with your logo? We did. We sold out. We're going to start selling more hats, but we're waiting until we move to the new building so that we have some more space to stock that apparel inventory. But the apparel is going to get really legit here in a little bit. Video is super choppy. I think it's fixed now. The resolution isn't as good now because I'm using the computer's camera, but hopefully the audio and video is better. All right, let's see what we got here. Jason Whitrock in the house. What's up, brother? Ken Barry Savage. Got Jason and Ken on the show here. How y'all doing? How y'all doing? Does Dr. Barry even work out? Asks Jason Whitrock. It's a good question, Dr. Barry. Do you even work out? Do you even lift, bro? We're gonna need to get a workout in here soon. Come to CrossFit. It is completely different. I'd be all for it. I'm all for trying it, trying new gyms, new facilities, meeting new people. I like going to big corporate gyms to meet people and to network and to try out different equipment, but I don't like that being the main place that I train. Can you explain the protein threshold? I know you're okay with high protein in terms of the threshold. Are there negative side effects when you go too much protein? Yes. Okay, this is a super involved question, but protein has been a topic of a lot of debate here lately, so it's a worthwhile topic to dive into. With anything, when you go to the extremes, there's going to be a tipping point. You don't want to go too low on any one thing. You don't want to go too high on any one thing. When you go way too high on protein, you're going to have a problem clearing that protein. Your body's not going to be able to assimilate and use all of that protein. You're going to have a downregulation of your ketones just by default, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Some of that's going to happen by default anyways. You shouldn't be chasing ketone, high ketone readings as the goal. But if you're trying to optimize from a ketogenic perspective, if you're taking in 50 grams of fat and 300 grams of protein, that's not really going to be optimal from a ketogenic perspective. If that's downregulated, you're not going to have the mental clarity. You're not going to have the recovery benefits. There's a host of other things that are not going to come with it. You're not going to have the energy. protein is not a great substrate for energy. So if the vast majority of your calories are coming from protein, you're not really likely going to have the most energy. Like if you're not getting your energy from carbs or from fats, and you're relying on the inefficient process of gluconeogenesis to provide glucose for energy, you're not going to feel optimal. So really kind of getting that dialed in is going to be key. All right. Keto Chef Max, what's up, brother? All right, is the YouTube and Facebook better? I know it's kind of, the resolution's a little off here, but hopefully that's working better now and y'all can see me at least. Are you still on here, Daniel? Shoot me a message and thumbs up or something if it's working good on YouTube and Facebook. And throw some questions my way, please. Yeah, let's dive into some new topics here. But the protein threshold thing, it's interesting, y'all, because when you're in any type of dietary industry, you see these trends come and go. Like I was Googling Google Trends the other day just to see how different trends have come and gone. If you got 15 spare minutes, check this out. Go to Google Trends and look at paleo. It peaked like in 2014. It's been a slow decline ever since. You look at keto. It peaked in 2019, and it's been declining. It has spikes in January. And then you look at vegan. Vegan's actually stayed pretty constant for the most part. You look at carnivore. Carnivore hit its peak in 2020, I think is when it peaked, and then it's been going down. There's all these bubbles in the dietary space. And the main thing you got to do is not let the trends and the hypes that come and go sway you too much one way or the other. Figure out what works well for you and just double down on that. Play the long haul. All right. What did I miss over here? Okay, I, of course, have questions with a big smile. Yeah, throw them at me. Type 1 keto guy. Hey, man, thanks for the live questions and answers. Quick one regarding carnivore. Would you recommend always sticking to fattier cuts of meat to make sure that the fat gets in there? Or would you supplement leaner cuts with added animal fats? Great question. So the main caveat to that question is it depends on the quality of the meats. If you're sourcing your protein from a very high quality source that is grass-fed, grass-finished, you know the butcher, you know the farmer, you know it's coming from a good spot, then I would opt for the fattier cuts of meat, because any of the chemicals, any of the added hormones, any of the things you don't want to be in your meat is going to be stored in that fat. So if you're going to Walmart, for instance, that's going to be using massive feedlots with a bunch of added antibiotics and everything and hormones, you don't necessarily want that. And if you go for the fattiest cuts of meat there's going to have a lot more impurities stored in that fat. So in that case, if you're on a budget and you don't want to get those, add quality fats. There is going to be a difference in price point, but if you can get a high quality meat, then I would opt for the fattier cuts. Just make sure it's quality meat. Either way, either of those options are probably still superior to eating a whole bunch of carbohydrates and processed foods. So if you're just getting into keto, for instance, then don't overthink the sourcing of the cattle and all of that. That would be the caution there. Truckology 101. What's up, brother? Good talking to you today. Thanks for this show. Hey, man, I appreciate the time. The ideas that we had, that you had. I'm super excited about that potential. So let's definitely keep in touch and make that happen. What we got here? Yeah, the question about, you see so many people, they overthink where they source their food, and sourcing is super incredibly important, but you don't want that to be the limiting factor that prevents you from simply jumping on the lifestyle and living that out. I try to get the best quality foods I can. I hunt. That's why I hunt. That's why I try to know the local butcher, know the people, build that relationship and source accordingly. But you don't want that to be a limiting factor that prevents you from doing keto, doing carnivore, and getting all that has to benefit from. I mean, when I first started, I was freaking broke, y'all. I started doing keto in 2015, I want to say, and I didn't have 2 dimes to rub together. So I was getting super cheap cuts of meat, and I was getting fatty cuts of meat, and it was all coming from the budget grocery stores, and that worked. That worked really, really well. It wasn't optimal, but it was certainly better than what I had been doing. And progress over perfection is key. Carnivore Yogi, what's up? How are you? All right, y'all, any more questions? I feel like with Crystal not being here with me, she's a little bit more long-winded than me, so she talks a little bit longer, lets more questions pile up. but she's on her way back, so we'll have her next time. We will have her next time. I'd love to get y'all's opinion on the different ratio debates right now. High protein keto, low protein keto, high fat keto, low fat keto. Do I remember correctly that Crystal had digestive issues? Yes, you do remember that correctly. She had all kinds of digestive issues. When we first met, she had just gotten surgery from, I forget what the surgery was, but she had just gotten a scope done and was going through a whole bunch of digestive issues when we very first met back in 2014 or 15. January 2015, I think, was our first date. And she tried to do a whole bunch of carbs. She was working at a coffee stand, so she would eat a bunch of pastries and stuff. And then every time she ate the pastries, her issues got even worse. So I finally convinced her to do keto. She did it for a little while, but then didn't stick with it. Ate more pastries, felt terrible, had a whole bunch of GI distress and bloat, and then finally went back to keto and has since been keto ever since then, and the issues have resolved. It took a long time for those digestive issues to resolve, but they did over time for sure. She hasn't had any issues since. All right, I'm missing some questions here. For weight loss, what macros do you recommend if you can't figure out what works for yourself? So you can't really just say, hey, I want to lose weight. What macros should I have? Because everybody's going to be different. It's going to be very dependent upon your genetics, your environmental factors, your training, your metabolic rate, your dieting history, your activity. There's so many factors your stress levels, your sleep quality, like all of those are going to affect an individual's macro utilization, how your body absorbs those macronutrients. So I can't just recommend a certain macros for, you specifically to lose weight and lose body fat. So it's going to be a little bit of trial and error. That's why it's so important to make very small, minor changes. So many people want to lose weight and they'll automatically hack off 500, 600, 700,000 calories, and they don't know where in that window the tipping point would have actually been. And then they leave all those calories on the table, and they don't have that caloric runway from which to taper as their body starts to plateau. Because anytime you provide a stimulus, whether it's in a weight gaining phase or a cutting phase, your body adapts. Your body is an adaptive being, like it's a smart unit. And if you start cutting calories pretty drastically, your metabolism is going to downregulate, your NEAT activity is going to drop, your body's going to want to try to stabilize at that lower caloric intake. So it's important to always have a lever to pull and some type of stimulus that you can use to keep things moving past those plateaus. So the more calories that you can have at the onset, the better. You don't want to just cut those off drastically at the onset. Seth, what's up, man? How much longer till the move? We're going to start moving in about 2 weeks. This was our last week of production on the bricks. Next week, we're packing things up. Week after that, we're moving. It's just going to be total chaos, but we are taking it day by day. Keto alternative due to the current meat prices. Whew, meat prices are pretty high, but I don't know of any alternative to real meat. I'm not going to be one that you see buying Beyond Burgers and Impossible Burgers. That's just not my cup of tea. So I cannot recommend any alternatives to actual meat. Make sure I'm getting some of these YouTube questions here. What if someone wants to maintain current muscles but not work out daily? What should the protein intake be? So if you're wanting to maintain your muscle mass but not necessarily build muscle mass, there's a lot of science that shows that you don't really need that much stimulus to maintain mass. I mean, it takes a lot of stimulus to build more mass. If you're in a deficit, then you're going to want to continue to have that similar stimulus that you've subjected your body to up to that point. So you don't want to necessarily drop that. But if you're eating at a maintenance or at a surplus, it doesn't require a ton of training stimulus to maintain the muscle that you have built. So, I mean, if driving a truck like you are, not having access to a gym on a regular basis, I mean, simply doing body weight stuff and resistance bands whenever you're on the road, that's going to work really, really well to maintain what you've got. Hello, Robert. Where's the missus? She is driving on the road right now, but she is on her way to see me soon. I am more carnivore, but I still have bloating. I feel better with more protein. I have some dairy, maybe once a week. I am not really sure how to figure a solution. A lot of it is honestly just time. Like Crystal, She was having her digestive issues really bad before she went keto, and then she pretty much had digestive issues. They would be much more intermittent, but she had those up until probably, I want to say, like 2 years ago. So she's been doing keto for quite some time before those ever totally resolved. But it got continually better and better. So hopefully you have less issues now than you did, at the very beginning. And it's going to take some time. Digestion is one of those things that sometimes it's a quick fix and it recovers and resolves pretty quickly, and sometimes it's like a more of a long drawn out process. But doing elimination style diets and figure out what variable is having a positive or negative impact one at a time, and giving yourself enough time in between those experiments is key. All right. I think the ratios are very interesting because I feel optimal with very high protein, but then there's days when I get bloated and not sure if it's because of the protein or just hormonal menstrual stuff. Yeah, if you like fat, dietary fat and body fat really helps to regulate hormones. I mean, if you have obsessive fat or are incredibly lean, don't have hardly any fat, that's obviously going to skew things. But having a healthy degree of body fat and a healthy degree of dietary fat are absolutely paramount in keeping your hormonal pathways stable. So making sure that those are in check is key. If you're doing a crazy high protein diet without enough fat, you're going to have some hormonal fluctuations that probably aren't optimal, and those are going to be amplified during your cycle. So that would make sense. What protein would you eat if you weren't doing keto? Every diet requires adequate protein. What protein would you eat if I weren't doing keto? I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, you're absolutely right. Every diet requires adequate protein. I eat quite a bit of protein, honestly. I have a pretty high tolerance to protein. There's not really anything, if I'm reading your question right, that I would eat protein wise that I can't eat now being keto, except I've been craving some fried catfish. Fried catfish is one of those things that you can't really, I mean, you can make keto alternatives to them, but it's hard to beat some good old fried catfish. Metabolic Mike in the building. What's up, brother? Higher fat or protein to start losing? Maybe better question. So that's going to be individualized as well. I personally like to start with a higher fat ratio, which a lot of people disagree with, but it's worked pretty dang well for me. I'll start with a higher fat ratio and then gradually titrate protein up while I'm dropping fat down, which is going to result in a net decrease in overall calories. Then I kind of push the limit to figure out what my protein threshold will be. And then I start with that higher fat ratio to kind of set the stage and maximize that fat oxidation at the onset. Chuck, brisket, ground beef, typical prices are outrageous. Yeah, I order a lot of meat, and I eat a lot of meat that we just butchered some lambs at my parents' house the other day. So I have a bunch of lamb meat that I need to start cracking into. Chicken, whey, casein, cottage cheese, yogurt, tuna, etc. Yeah, I still eat a little bit of chicken. I don't eat a ton of chicken, but I do eat a little bit of chicken. I don't eat any canned tuna. I do like grilled tuna. I mean, fish and seafood are super lean. So if you're doing a higher fat protocol, you have to add a bunch of fat to it. But I do love seafood, ceviche especially. I'm a fan of ceviche. Thank you. Computer streams, which I understand finally diff There we go. I don't know what happened on YouTube. We're back. Um, yeah, I would have to know more than that. I mean, if your lean tissue is approximately under 130, you want to make sure you're getting enough grams of protein to at least ensure that you're not muscle wasting, you're not burning through any of that muscle. So make sure you're at least getting, I don't know what your actual lean tissue is, but make sure you're at least getting that much in protein grams to prevent any possible muscle wasting. Sarah Robert has a macro calculator on his website. Yes, I do indeed. Seth, thank you, brother. Requested. What's up, coach? What's up, Keto Theo? How are you, man? How often do you adjust your macros when on a cut? I adjust macros every single week. So let's talk about this. This is a good question. A lot of people, when they're in a cut, I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but I want to go into more detail. They'll drop calories drastically. When you are in a cut, you typically want to do it over a very long period of time for a muscle maintenance standpoint. If you're doing a very drastic cut, a very aggressive cut with calories, then you're not going to be in as good a position to preserve the lean tissue that you've built up to that point. So ideally, from a natural athlete standpoint, doing a longer cut, which is typically for me 4 to 6 months, provides the greatest opportunity for me to maintain the muscle that I've built, along with my training that I keep at a pretty high intense rate. So when I'm doing that, rather than dropping calories massively throughout that 4 to 6 months, I do very incremental changes, but I do so every single week. By doing that, I'm constantly and consistently applying just a little bit of pressure. And that constant application of pressure is what forces the body to adapt to that stimulus. That adaptation takes the form of fat loss. So when I'm doing a cut, I do very small incremental changes, but I do them every single week. All right. The easiest is a situation as it's painful to stand is to cook the limited amount of lamb organs I have once a day. Ends up about 80 grams of protein and then full up rest of calories with fat. Yeah, I would do more than 80 grams of protein because you're not trying to cut right now. So I would definitely add a little bit more protein intake. And if you can't get any more protein, then yeah, protein shakes is an option for sure. I'm not normally a fan of protein shakes, though. I mean, I can't even tell you all the last time I had a protein shake. I used to have protein shakes all the time. If I do a powdered protein, I mean, there's protein powder in the bricks, so I get, I guess, protein in that regard, but not a whole lot. What Crystal does for her digestion, speaking about that earlier, that's super tasty is she'll get yogurt, like a clean keto friendly yogurt that doesn't have a whole bunch of, doesn't have any added sugars, just has the natural sugars in the yogurt. And she'll add a scoop of collagen protein to that. And that is absolutely delicious. It's super tasty, super healthy, very clean if you get a good collagen protein. So I've been doing that whenever I'm wanting something to top the macros off. Thanks. By small incremental changes, do you mean 5-10 grams of a specific macro? Yep, exactly. So 5 or 10 gram increments of protein and fat. Carbs stay low throughout, so that doesn't really change. But yeah, 5 or 10 gram increments on the protein and fat. Show enough. All right, Joe, what else we got? We're 23 minutes deep. I feel like I'm on a roll. Elevated athletes, fat for weight loss. What's going on, y'all? I'm glad to see that those bricks made it all the way to you and all. Opinion on egg protein. Egg protein is usually eggs actually like right, and so because so many obvious low percentage weight the can't do weight from them usually is gold standard for others as most ability passes more so their weight people can't do so for I'm not really sure what's going on, so sorry about all the disconnects. I can't do eggs nor yogurt, but quail eggs are researched to be helpful for not only mast cell but other inflammatory issues. Egg whites do have more histamine. Thank you with all my heart. Yeah, eggs are pretty freaking awesome. A lot of people that can't do organ meats will use eggs because a lot of the nutrients that they would be getting from the organ meats are present in a whole egg. Is the new Better Than Joe Rogan studio behind you? No, this is not the studio. This is my old studio. This is not the new building. We'll be moving into the new building in a couple of weeks, if all goes well. I gotta tell y'all, moving the business and everybody in the business is the most stressful thing I've ever done in my entire life. Like it is. I can't even begin to tell y'all what all chaos has been like these past several weeks. But we're rounding the corner. We're in the home stretch, so I'm hoping it all goes smooth. For the move, this is amazing. Thank you, brother. I'm excited for all you got going on, man. You have been killing it with all of your content, and you have been for freaking years. So keep doing what you're doing, man. All right, y'all. I might call it quits here soon unless we get some more questions rolling in. We might call it quits here soon. Can we help you? No, I mean, it's just a matter of doing it. So I can't really say anything that you can do to help me. As far as the move itself goes, we got an 18-wheeler coming. My uncle has a trucking business, so we got an 18-wheeler coming. We're all going to be loading up trailers and making the move up there in just a few weeks. All right, here we got a question from Kathy. For reverse dieting, should I slowly get back to my starting calories of 1950, and she dropped to 1100 during a cut, or hold calories when I find I'm maintaining my current weight? I will cut again to lose 10 pounds. I would definitely go slowly back up to ideally a higher caloric intake than you were at the onset, but with a better body composition. Every time you cycle through a cutting phase and reverse diet phase, the goal should be to end the reverse diet at a leaner composition with more calories than you were at the beginning of the cut. So that should always be the goal there. That way you're continually getting better and better. Do you know much about APOE4 and best way to eat to prevent Alzheimer's? I know a little bit about it, but I'm not a geneticist by any stretch of the imagination. I would definitely point you to Dr. Anthony J. when it comes to anything genes and genomes and genetics. He is the man there. Also, Dr. Peter Attia talks quite a bit about that. But my go-to has always been Dr. Anthony J. But I'll look into that more. I need to look into more. I did a genetic test a while back, but I forget what all my markers and SNPs were. All right, y'all. I'm going to call it a day. I'm going to try and clean the house a little bit before Crystal gets here so that I can keep her happy. Thank you so much, Robert. Very helpful. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Is the answer... Oops. I don't know why it's not coming up. Is the answer on leg strengthening more squats? OMG, still crazy cycling, but tried to Zwift a tour stage and made half the mountain. You'll definitely improve your leg strength with squats. There's no doubt about that. I always gravitate towards squats because it has a psychological benefit. Like getting under that bar and going deep with some squats works magic from a psychological standpoint. So there's that. All right, y'all. I'm gonna take it easy. Take out of here. I need a question for next week, though. So if one of y'all has a question for next week we're gonna be packing. So the next question that comes in will be next week's starting answer. If anybody wants to throw a question out for the taking, I would be forever grateful. I'm just gonna sit here and drink some water while y'all throw me a question. That's all I gotta say about that. Or I'll come up with a question myself. All right, that's what I'm done. I'll come up with a question myself so I can start cooking and cleaning. All right, y'all. Take care. Love you. Adios. Have a good one.